Greetings from Indianapolis. Today we're talking with a former big-time entrepreneur who risked it all to take used soap from hotels and recycle it to do, well, he wasn't exactly sure what he wanted to do with it, but Sean Seipler, 15 years ago, started Clean the World in his garage and decided that recycled soap could be put to good use in places around the world that didn't have access to soap and where people were dying without soap. Today, Clean the World is doing a whole lot more than recycling soap, and it's a global company bringing relief to people around the world. I'm Wynn Smiley, and this is the ATO Show. So, Sean, thank you for taking some time to talk with us today. I know a lot of people who are in hotels always look at the soap and wonder, man, that seems very wasteful. Or they just sort of wonder what happens to it. Does it get reused? What happens? And so you had the same question, and you decided that there needed to be an answer to that. So walk us through how, in fact, you made the connection between having hotel soaps that get thrown away to where Clean the World is today in its ability to reutilize those soaps in places that wouldn't necessarily have access to soap.
Yeah, thanks, Wynn, for having me on. It's a great pleasure to talk to all of my fellow ATO brothers. So about 15 years ago, I was running a global sales team for a technology company. I was on the road about 4 nights a week and had a niche that I wanted to do something on my own. I didn't know what that was, but as an entrepreneur at that time, 15 years ago, I was thinking about things in green energy space, sustainability space. I just thought that would sort of be the future. Not that I had a notion of environmentalism or those types of things. I just thought, solar panels and wind turbines and things like that would be maybe the thing of the future. So I was looking for items of waste. I was in a hotel room one night in Minneapolis, calling on 2 of my biggest customers, Best Buy and Target. Had a couple cocktails that night and decided to think about the little bar of soap and the little bottle of shampoo that as I traveled from one city to the next, I never took with me. And so I called down the front desk and I asked, what happened to the soap and shampoo, and I was done with it. And since I stayed there so frequently, they kind of chuckled and they said, Sean, you may need another cocktail. I said, well, you could shoot one of those up, but really, what happens to the soap when I'm done? They said, we throw it away. And so I thought that was interesting. So I went to my laptop and I did a little Googling. And at that time, there were 4.6 million hotel rooms in the United States. We had an average occupancy rate of about 60%. And an average night stay of about 1.2. And so I kind of did some back of envelope math and said if all hotels were throwing their soap away, we were throwing away 1 million bars of soap every day at hotels across the US and several million at hotels across the globe. So that sort of stuck with me. And over the next days and weeks, I tried to figure out, well, can I recycle soap? And I found some very easy ways to melt it down and reform it into a new bar. It's called rebatching. Then I went on a journey of figuring out, well, what would I do with recycled soap? And so, I asked some family members, would you buy recycled soap at the grocery store? And they all said, absolutely not. I thought about, well, could I sell it in international markets? What could I do with it? And on that journey, I came across one study and then a second and then a third, and really about 10 studies in total that all said that back then in 2009, there were 9,000 children under the age of 5 dying every day to pneumonia and diarrheal disease, the number 1 and number 2 killers of children worldwide. And all these studies showed that if we just gave them soap and taught them how and when to wash their hands, that we could cut those deaths in half. And so I had a moment of obligation. I can remember very clearly sitting on my bed. I had 2 homes at the time. Had a nice big 750 in the driveway. I had tens of thousands of stock options at a tech company that Google ended up buying a few years after I started Clean the World. But I had this enormous inside of me, this voice, this feeling that said, wow, there's 1 million bars of soap being thrown away every day, and there's 9,000 children dying every day, and all you got to do is figure out how to get those bars that are being tossed away into the hands of those 9,000 children every day. And so that was the birthing, the aha moment for Clean the World. The economy in 2009 was doing pretty bad, so it wasn't a great time for me to start this entirely new venture. But I was able to get some family members to join me in a single car garage in downtown Orlando, Florida. We all sat around on upside down pickle buckets with potato peelers. We'd collect bars of soap from hotels across Orlando. We'd scrape the outside of those bars of soap with those potato peelers, surface clean it. We had a meat grinder that would grind it up into a noodle. We had cookers where we would cook the soap for a couple hours to cook out the impurities. We cook it into a paste. We made these big wood soap molds. We put some wax paper down. We put the paste on it, more wax paper. We top it, clamp it. We let it dry overnight. The next day we'd get wire cutters and we'd cut all the soap out and we put it on these racks, and the fan would blow it dry overnight, and the power would cut in the house every 30 minutes, and my family really needed music playing the entire time. So when that cut the music off, that kind of cut the production off. So I had to figure out how to solve that. And true story, the first time the police came by the garage, they wanted to see what we were all cooking in this garage. And so I gave them a nice tour of our soap factory. But that's how we started 15 years ago in that single car garage. And as I look 15 years later to today, we have recycling operational centers in Orlando, Las Vegas, Montreal, Punta Cana, Amsterdam, Hong Kong. I have offices in London, Singapore, Japan. We have 9,000 hotels that operate our program, 1.5 million hotel rooms we recycle every single day. We've diverted over 25 million pounds of waste from going into landfill across several continents. And we have distributed 85 million free bars of soap to children, families, and mothers in 127 countries across the globe. That's across the United States and so many other areas. So 15 years later, we've done a pretty good thing, and the impact has been quite amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. I'm sure that's probably the first and last time that police looking in a garage wondering what was cooking found recycled soap. So how long, I know that it was a financial issue as related to doing this in the back of your garage. How long did you do it with the potato peelers and the boiling the soap, what you described as the process? How long did that go before you found a better way to do it?
So in my previous career, I was used to selling technology. I sold multi-million-dollar tech deals to big companies on clear ROIs and back-end operational engineering, platforms, designs. That's what I was used to. So when I launched this company, I thought it should be a nonprofit, really, because I didn't know any better. And as I asked people for money to help support our mission, I found that I was very bad at that. In fact, I was unable to raise money. And so it's kind of a great story out there. You could read the Orlando Sentinel put an article out called Clean the World's Rocky Path to Success. And you'll read about my endeavors as I lost a home, as my wife's car was repossessed one day, as the power was cut in our house. And again, I was early 30s, had a lot of resources going into that 2009, but we went through it all. And under a model that I was unsure about. So I had to figure out how to generate revenue to fund this, what I thought was this great sustainability and social impact program. And so I thought, we're providing a value to hotels. Hotels should pay for this program. This is a recycling program that has a life at the end of it. And it's valuable for their employees. It's valuable for their stakeholders, for their shareholders, and it's valuable for their consumers who more and more want to stay in hotels that are making a difference locally and globally and are doing the right thing by the environment. So we started to bundle that up about mid to late 2009 and started to put a package together that we thought would make sense for hotels. Now, at the same time, the local Fox 35 here in Orlando went with us to the northern part of Haiti on our first international distribution trip. And they documented that. And they ran that story on the local Fox 35 here in Orlando. And it just so happened that story ran on a few other local Fox networks. And one of them was in New York. And the night it ran, Katie Couric, who was doing CBS Evening News, her senior producer, happened to watch that story, felt compelled that they wanted to do a story on us. And so while we're still in the garage, I get a call from Katie Couric, senior producer, saying, we want to run something on CBS Evening News about you guys. And by the way, the H1N1 flu virus was starting to happen at that time in late 2009. So I was really close to getting a couple of hotels to sign on to the program. And when CBS said, we need to start this journey in a hotel, I called the Peabody down here in Orlando, which is one of the most iconic hotels, and they were close. And I said, listen, Peabody, if you come and you sign this contract with me and you start paying for this program and you shout it from the mountaintops, I'll put you on CBS Evening News and you guys will get all this great, free media publicity. And they said, we'll do it. And so that piece ended up running. It was really positive. We started getting a lot of calls from hotels across the nation after that. But that was really one of those moments that got us going financially. And at that point, we were able to get more access to debt financing, to donors, but mostly we had earned revenue. And once I was able to sell one hotel, I knew based on my sales background that I could sell 10 hotels and 1,000 hotels and 5,000 hotels. And so that really got us going. We toyed around with the model a little bit. We introduced a for-profit and then a B Corp organization. So today, as we sit, we are a hybrid organization. We are a for-profit B Corp that I own and a 501c3 nonprofit, which is named the Wash Foundation. We have multiple companies. We're doing close to $25 million a year now in revenue. We've launched other products that are designed to make the world a better place that companies buy to help others. But figuring out that business model and how to structure it and how to earn revenue was one of the biggest challenges early on that once we overcame, we had a lot of opportunity to grow.
Yeah, and when you were when you were operating out of your garage and when you were seeing your assets being taken away as you were committed to this enterprise and this idea, what personally did you learn in going through something that I'm sure you never thought that you would be going through?
Yeah. Well, I've had the privilege of lecturing at colleges around the world. I've lectured at colleges in China. I've lectured at Harvard. I've lectured on this subject of social entrepreneurship. On an entrepreneur that has a cause, has a purpose at the center of their product, their service, their program. For me, it was that first trip to Haiti. It was showing up at the Evangelical Church of Haiti, where there were 10,000 Haitians at 1 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon, coming to hear a message, but to get soap. And I only had 2,000 bars of soap that we had cooked up in our garage in downtown Orlando. And one after the other, mothers came up and told stories of the one child they buried and the 2 children they buried, and all because they didn't have soap. And they described diarrheal disease perfectly. Their stomachs were hurting. They started to get to vomit. They started to have the diarrhea. They got dehydrated and they died. And many of them would take their babies and families to the voodoo doctor because they thought they were doing something wrong. They thought it was something else. And all the while, it's because that same 50-cent bar of soap we buy in the U.S. costs the same 50 cents in Haiti for a mother that on average makes $2 a day in a country that has a 70% unemployment rate. So when I came back to the U.S. and I was seeing those assets go and I was seeing that happen, I had this distinct knowledge and understanding of these mothers and these babies and these folks that I just saw in Haiti. That's a stone's throw away from the United States. It was a quicker flight on a twin propeller DC-3 over the Bermuda Triangle than it is for me to fly to DC today. And I just thought, man, I have got to help them. This has got to happen. And furthermore, the reaction that I was getting from people here in the States was, this is really good. This is positive. It was just, how are we going to pay for it? And the hotels who we originally were giving this product away for free said, hey, we love what you're doing, but it's really tough for us to pay right now because of this global economic crisis we're in. So I knew I just had to sort through that, and I just had to do it quick enough before all the assets were gone and I had nothing. I was on nothing, but I was able to operate on fumes there for a little while to get the thing turned until we got a few breaks.
And your family, obviously supportive. Were they with you when you were in Haiti, or were you just effectively able to describe the experience and they were all in with you?
Well, I did have a few family members that went with me. I mean, I think the most important family member was my wife at the time.
Right.
We had 4 young children. When I told her I wanted to do this, she said, whatever you want to do, honey. She saw me over the course of the previous 10 years. Anything I did was successful. But then we started to lose assets. Things started to go a little south. And I recall her giving me a very clear one day saying, sweetie, I think we should park my car in the garage because, we're back a few months on this car payment. I said, they're not going to come get your car. Everything's going to be fine, sweetie. And I remember the day I walked out and her car was repossessed. And I came back in and I just said, sweetie, you were right. You were absolutely right this time. We should have parked it in the garage. But the encouragement that I had from her, from the immediate family members, my father helped me quite a bit during that time period. And again, I was a guy that in 2008, at this technology company that I was at, I made close to $400,000 that year. So that was quite a turn within those 12, 18 months, but everybody believed in what we were doing. We took a lot of pictures, came back and we told the stories. We knew their names, we knew their stories, we knew what was going on. The data in the studies was there. And so we just really used that to continue to drive us forward while we were really trying to strategize and identify, the selling points, the right price point, what would hotels pay for? How do we help them talk about how good this program is for them? How do we help them have the data to share with their customers? How much landfill diversion, how many hand washes they've handed out, how many refugees they've served, how many mothers in Haiti they've served. How do we help them share that on social media and on their websites and in their global citizenship reports? We were being very smart about how to make that happen. We just needed kind of that survival time to let things take off. And we were blessed to have that at the end of the day.
So then you started, presumably after the CBS story, you got more hotels engaged, and you knew that this was an enterprise that was going to make it. At what point did you said, wow, this is growing faster now than I thought it was, and we need to staff up. We need people around the country or all over the world, because the demand to get engaged in this program is perhaps more than we anticipated. Is that the scenario that played out?
Yeah, so that first CBS Evening News piece was in September of 2009. In January 12, 2010, was the devastating earthquake in Haiti that claimed hundreds of thousands of lives, displaced hundreds of thousands. That when that happened, we started just collecting things across Central Florida, hygiene products, all types of products. We got access to private airplanes. We were flying things into Haiti. I just so happened to go down to Port-au-Prince, was called when I was in Port-au-Prince by CBS again. They said, hey, can we come down here and can we document you? I said, I'm here. I'm going to hand soap out tomorrow at a tent city. Come on down. They came. I had a line of Haitians behind me. I'm in a tent city where 60,000 are living, and I'm handing soap out. And Dr. LaPook with CBS Evening News says, you're the Pied Piper of soap. I said, yeah, I guess I'm the Pied Piper of soap. When that story ran is when the phones really started going nuts. And all of a sudden it became scale. How do we scale? Now, there was this moment of the Haiti earthquake where everybody wanted to help Haiti and everybody wanted to get involved. And for the hospitality industry, this was the way to do it, to get involved with Clean the World. So while we started to get a lot of contracts on board, I needed more equipment, I needed more people, I needed more printing supplies, we needed more things. And so that's when, the credit facilities were starting to loosen a little bit into 2010. This was also when we introduced the for-profit. Banks tend to want to lend to for-profits a lot more than they want to lend to nonprofits. They want to know that you're in the business to create value and to make money. And we certainly look to do that. We want to hire the best and the brightest. We want to create value. And so once we started to make that shift, our ability to get to not just banking and debt, but also to get to social investors. And we brought some investors in at the time, some very small investors in 2010 and 11. But that is when the scale had to happen. And truthfully, we've been scaling really ever since 2019 was our largest year. Then we hit COVID in 2020, just like so many businesses took that, we went from 100 employees to 13 on a 2-week cycle of layoffs that happened in April of 2020, and then did the rebuild again, and now have ourselves in the strongest financial position and growth position. But it was incumbent upon us at that time to get a model in place where banks would be interested in us, and certainly having those contracts stacking up. When we signed those contracts, we made them 5-year deals. We had companies pay us annual in advance. So our cash to conversion ratios early were very high. I learned that tech company, don't just get folks to pay you, get them to pay you the whole thing up front. So we give a big discounts, 5-10% if they would do annual prepays, 2-3% if they do semi-annual prepays. The minimum had to be quarterly. And since we had a captivated audience that really wanted to help at that moment, we needed to leverage that into good contracts and good deals that we could show the banks that we knew what we were doing. And that started to open up those credit facilities and allowed us to grow.
So the number of needy people for this is shocking for those of us in first world when we complain about our first world problems. But I'm guessing that there are more needs than there is recycled soap right now. So how do you determine where the soap is going? Are you working with relief agencies? Is there a strategy as you work your way around the world in terms of being able to provide soap to people who need it?
That's a great question. So leading up to 2020, the death rate to children under the age of 5 dying to these hygiene-related illnesses decreased by more than 65%. The United Nations WASH cluster, Water Sanitation Hygiene Cluster, credited Clean the World as one of the major organizations who put 75 million free bars of soap at that time out on the streets, over 70 million, and added us to the United Nations Global WASH Cluster. So we now sit today in a position to help drive those global strategies. Here's what we do. We have a couple of different distribution models. Number one, we give to a lot of NGO partners. So we have great partnerships with Children International, World Vision, Samaritan's Purse, Operation Christmas Child, Feeding America here locally. We get them soap. They're putting those into hygiene kits, into their programming and doing distribution. But we're going into communities like we do in Uganda, like we do in the Dominican Republic. And number one, we're sourcing more soap locally. So it's not so much about doing the handout. We are initially getting folks on soap that comes from our facilities to get them understanding the value in teaching, especially school children. We really do that in our Wash in Schools program. But on an ongoing basis, we help create soap makers locally. And we help empower women. We have a microfinancing program, and we do things to make soap makers and entrepreneurs locally. So there's a sustainable model, and so that economic growth happens in those local communities, and we're not just sort of diving soap into these areas. We do a lot
which I assume provides income for people, another job for them to be able to make some money.
That's exactly right. There's an entire women empowering methodology here, microfinancing methodology that we do. And so that's right. We help drive those local economies. And then a lot of our soap distribution always goes in refugee scenarios. So we've done a lot of soap, recently into Ukraine, several 100,000, if not close to 1 million hygiene kits and bars of soap that have gone in for refugees in Ukraine, especially in the early days of the war. Somalian refugees, we've done that at the southern border of the U.S. We've put soap into the Middle East conflicts that have happened. So when those people are displaced and they're out of their homes and they're into these camps, that's a time when disease can spread more rapidly, when those situations can occur. And so we come in with hygiene kits, with water stations, and that's a time that we're really helping with our soap to help those in need until they can get more into their permanent housing. But in local communities, we want to help establish local soap makers and soap retailers. So there's an ongoing, we want to get them hooked on soap, and then we want to make sure they've got a long-term solution in place for better hygiene.
I'm interested in how this all has affected your kids or your family as they've, I assume, gone to more than just one trip to Haiti in the enterprise.
It has been, it's one of those blessings that you receive on this journey, that 15 years ago, when you think things are tough and you think things are almost desperate, and you have to really rely on your faith, and you have to rely on the promises that you have, and that God's going to take care of you and is going to get you through, and you got to live more by faith, right? You go 15 years later in this case, and you look at one of those blessings of the way my children are, their love of others. I mean, the love your neighbor. I have a keynote that I've given across the globe. It's just on love your neighbor. It's about, what does that mean? What does it look like? What does it do for you? And to see my children live that out. I have 4 daughters, 1 son. I have 5 now, and just to see the type of people that they have become, because of the journey that they've been on over the last 15 years and my intentionality of sharing it with them and them coming on trips and us doing the Thanksgiving handouts and going out to the Dominican Republic together and just seeing them interact with other children their age in places that where they lived in abject poverty. It's just been one of those incredible blessings that I sit back today and I thank God that I've been able to do that. I don't know that that is what happens if I'm working at Google right now, selling a bunch of technology around the world. I don't know that that's where it ends up. What happens with my children. So it's just an immense blessing that we give thanks for it, and seeing that the type of people they are is just one of the joys for me and my wife.
So the overall mission today for Clean the World is what?
Well, we create products. We create products to help make the world a better place. We sell those products to Fortune 100, Fortune 1000 companies. We help them impact others, and then we give them all the data that they need to share that with their shareholders, consumers, with their stakeholders. We have several brands now. So we have one that just sells to hotels. That's the soap and plastic recycling. By the way, we're doing a lot of plastic recycling these days. There's a lot more plastic coming out, those large format, large dispenser bottles that are coming out. We have another one. I'm actually wearing the brand right now called CTW Events. And this company is actually our largest company. And it sells hygiene kit builds, back to school backpack builds, comfort kit builds to companies all over the world at conferences, at events. It's team building activities. Folks can buy them. They build these hygiene kits and backpacks and comfort kits. We're doing food right now, so food pantry boxes as well to feed the hungry. It allows, again, those companies, those employees, those volunteers of those companies to feed, to serve, to give hygiene kits out to those in need. We have another product where we give showers to those experiencing homelessness across the United States. We're in Southern Nevada. We're in a couple markets in California. We're in Colorado. We're in Central Florida. And so we sell to municipalities, and they buy our 40-foot trailer, which has 4 beautifully custom-designed showers in it. We bring those experiencing homelessness to us. We put wraparound services there so they can get help with temporary housing, with drug addiction, with IDs, with legal work, and we get them on the continuum from homeless to home. And the data that we're seeing, the reduction we're seeing in local homelessness, by giving somebody that once a week shower, where they just get that nice hot shower, they get a hygiene kit, they brush their teeth, they shampoo their hair. You think about that psychological impact that you have every day when you take a shower to start your day, or when you're at the end of a hard day and you take that shower to kind of wash things off. Imagine never getting that at all on the streets and what that may have. And we're seeing some great data to show reduction in homelessness. So, we come in every day as a product organization to create the next product that's going to help protect our planet, that's going to help make a difference around the world, that's going to help those socially, economically, feed the hungry. And so it's a pretty fun day at CTW Global, Clean the World, CTW Events, the Wash Foundation. Those are all of our companies. When we get to come in every day to try to figure out how to help others.
You sound like a busy guy. So looking forward, do you see just more of the same, continued growth, or given how the world is today, are you seeing new opportunities that perhaps were not there, just a few years ago?
We see new opportunities and we see continued growth. In the hospitality industry, we will become more of a plastic recycler. We'll look at circular plastic opportunities. So taking plastic, turning it into flake, and then turning it into a new product. And how can we maybe tie that new product to something that is more of a social impact to sort of meet, our brand? We're looking at carbon marketplaces. We're looking at feeding more, doing more of the feeding. On the event side, there's a lot of growth there. I want to get into gamification. I want to bring more technology. I want to bring more speakers. We see, those right now that are in college campuses across America, across the globe, are more socially conscious than any other generation ahead of them. So they want to be a part of companies that are doing the right thing and making a difference around the world. They want to start companies that are making a difference and doing the right thing. And I'm here to tell them they can start great companies that make money, that hire the best and the brightest. In our company, we hire the best and the brightest. We've got full benefits. We've got 401k. We're creating value. We've got stock options. We do things to create that value, but we get to come in every day and figure out how to help others. And we need more of that because government's not going to solve our problems in the future. We got a lot of opportunities around this world to help people and to make a difference. And if we rely on government, it's just not going to be there. If we rely on nonprofit independent sector, the money's not there. It's gonna be the private sector. It's going to be the strength of the back of social capitalism, conscious capitalism, in order for us to be able to make the world a better place. So on that note, I'm looking for ways to do that, and I'm looking, by the way, for young businesses that have these awesome ideas that we are investing in ourselves, that we are offering our platform to, and that we're trying to figure out how to make part of our segments, because we do really good at selling it, marketing and branding it. And so we have a few opportunities we're working on right now that are completely out of today's product set for us. And, so I'm definitely looking at the next 10 to 20 years to see what more we can do.
And are you seeing traction from young entrepreneurs or small companies looking at exactly what you're describing? What would typically have been done in the nonprofit world before is now more corporate because that's where the money is.
Tremendous traction. So number one, social entrepreneurship is a course, in some cases is many courses on most college campuses across the globe. So they're teaching social entrepreneurship. They're learning about social entrepreneurship. I am an investor and part of a group here in Central Florida called Rally. It's the Social Entrepreneurial Accelerator. So we're bringing early stage companies in that have that have both a social and a financial metric combined in order to help accelerate them. I've mentored and been a part of 50 businesses in the last 3 years or so that are on that endeavor. And so many of them are young entrepreneurs under the age of 30. Many of them have started their ideas while they're on college campuses, being around this whole social entrepreneurial models. And again, I was invited to the College of Engineering at Harvard and spoke in a speaker series where Elon Musk spoke after I did. So it was that important to Harvard, for example, to have somebody like myself to come in and speak about what social entrepreneurship can mean and what it looks like. So yes, we're seeing a lot of that. We're very encouraged about that.
And whether it's at Harvard or another university that you've spoken at, what kind of questions do you get? What's the typical question that undergraduates who are interested in listening to you are asking you when they get the opportunity to talk with you?
Well, that's a great question. So traditionally, making a business that would help somebody else was coming out of the nonprofit sector. So the first thing is this idea of how does the money work? I mean, how do we get investment? How does this really work? And when you start to look at how many dollars are there from it's the term, like it or not, there are a lot of private houses, a lot of equity firms that have an ESG mandate. They have to invest in environmental social governance. They've set funds and open funds that have a certain mandate. They have not deployed all that money. They have to deploy that money in those areas. So the first thing is there money available? There are hundreds of billions of dollars available within the areas of environmental social governance. There are, when you look at the UN SDGs, you look at a lot of the 2030, you think about the Paris Climate Accords. I mean, we're in a political season where some of that right now is frowned upon and not. Businesses who are selling to Gen Z and millennials know that they're socially conscious. They will eventually have the largest transfer of wealth, just like we did from and are going through right now from baby boomers to millennials. And their money is going to be spent on brands and companies and products and services that are doing the right thing, that have the right supply chains, that are making the world a better place. So that's the first question I get is there money in it? And yes, there eventually are trillions of dollars in it. When you and I were younger, and there was a sweatshop found to be manufacturing the next set of apparel, those brands plummeted on the stock market. Those brands were out. I mean, just imagine if that happens today. What happens with those brands and valuation? So that's number one. Is there money in terms of investment? Number two is help me craft. I know that I want to help. I know that I want to do something. But then how do we get to revenue models? How do we get to strategic business plans that incorporate more of the traditional, business technique and acumen that you would if you sat down and said, I'm making a cleaning company, or I'm making the next ETF out there. I mean, you've got these models and plans on more traditional businesses that there's playbooks out there already, right? So how do I make a playbook for something that may not exist? How do I make a playbook for taking used soap from hotels and recycle it and send to those in need? And there's not a lot of playbooks when it comes to making social impact organizations and products. That's what usually the fear is. And the good news is that there are a lot of playbooks. B Corps, benefit corporations, B Lab certified companies have been out there for a while, and there's a lot of great models. And that marketplace, those organizations are open. They're willing to share. They're willing to help. They're willing to take on those interns to help create and craft some of those young people's minds around how to create smart business models to help make the world a better place. So those tend to be, and then we'll get a lot of just specifics around how we marketed, how we sold, how we survived, how we got banking, access to banking credit. But that typically is, can I really make my parents proud? Can I really not throw away this college education and do something to make the world a better place? And the answer is you absolutely can. And you can create value, you can create wealth while you're doing the right thing.
Right. Is there like a Shark Tank for B corporations? I'm assuming that you've seen, heard, actually engaged great businesses that do exactly what you're describing. Can you name a couple of those?
Absolutely. There's social impact funds that come out of the UK. I mean, there are just a number. If you Google social investing, social impact funds, you'll find a number of those investment houses, of those private houses that are doing those investments. I know in Europe there's a platform called Impact Hub. It's a social it's an accelerator in about 200 cities across Europe. We're trying to look at some of those models here. Again, Raleigh out of Central Florida is one of them. At the end of our accelerator, there's about 70 investors that these organizations get put in front of, and we're making investments in those organizations. If you look at RSF Social Finance out of the Bay Area, there's a number in the Bay Area. There's a few in Chicago area as well. But if you start looking for them, you'll find them, and they're out there, and they're eager to find startup ideas and companies that are trying to make the world a better place. I mean, in all areas of sustainability, environmental, social, and governance.
Yeah. Any a couple of organizations that you've seen, they're like, wow, that's a great idea. How come someone didn't think of that a lot earlier?
Yeah, well, there's one that I'm getting really interested in right now that creates a fertilizer that gets rid of red tide, which is a big deal here in the state of Florida. They are doing it out of worm dung, right? But they have a special device that sanitizes the worm dung to get rid of the extract, right? To get rid of what is potentially harmful and damaging to plants and species when you put it in, and it completely disinfects it. And by doing that, you have the best fertilizer. There's no odor. It grows at far better rates than your typical retail fertilizer. I've seen it. I've been in their shop. I've seen what they do. Gets rid of red tide. And so here's something where, and it was a bunch of students over here at UCF. You can read about them. The company's called Wriggle Brew. They're in the School of Engineering. They came up with this concept. They went through Raleigh, love what they're doing, trying to get involved with them. Seen a lot of things on battery recycling. Seen a lot of solar ideas. Seen a lot of water and sanitation, and that help in sub-Saharan Africa and in Latin America and Southeast Asia. But so there's some really cool companies that we've been a part of that are making a big difference.
You mentioned that millennials and Z Gen are interested in definitely trying to impact through social engagement. We do a program called Men of Destiny, where we ask undergraduates, actually any ATO, we've done this with a lot of alumni too, trying to begin to answer the question, what's your destiny? It doesn't necessarily mean it's your job, but what are you passionate about? And so the program is, what's your life experience been like? How has that informed you? What do you really love to do? What are you good at? And if you think of a Venn diagram, that's one circle. The other circle is, what's the community or the state or the world need? And that overlap then we suggest is the beginning perhaps of their destiny. And the program is very popular. It's interesting. It's almost even, it's certainly as popular, if not more so, with alumni. We had someone who was in his early 80s go through the program, and he was excited because he had identified some things that he still wanted to do. So I think it is something that ATO does, and we see it getting traction. And I think your experience would suggest why we're seeing getting traction.
That's phenomenal. And while we see so much of this coming out of the younger, generations and those that are, that have so much of the socially conscious, we do see companies that come through from folks that have started in their mid 30s and their mid 40s. And so it is generational. And I do think it comes from a moment in time where we all see a lot of ills around us. I think with social media and other platforms, we can see those things quicker, faster, more elaborate than when we were young. And I think it drives the internal force inside of us. Again, back to sort of what I speak about. I mean, I believe we've been created, and I believe that our Creator's given us one charge, and that's to, in terms of how we treat those on earth, and it's to love them. And I believe that when we do that, and when we see that love in action, we actually become more and more like our Creator. And there is actually a physiological impact that happens when you love somebody. There's actually a glow that turns on inside your brain. And I don't think that that's by accident. I think that's by design, that when those things happen, the dopamine releases and the way that people turn on because they're helping. We see it in our volunteer centers all the time. We have people that will come in, their company brought them to volunteer. They've got to do it. They're not so happy. They're a little grumpy, that they've got to kind of sweat a little bit. And those people at 8 a.m., by 4 o'clock when they're done, they are the happiest, the most turned on. They are the most enthusiastic. They don't want to leave because something happened inside of them. And again, we see it. This has been studied. They have more confidence. There's less depression. So I think that anytime anybody's got an opportunity to do something that's going to help somebody else, I think it's the direction they get drawn to.
Yeah, certainly we see that in our chapters. When they focus on philanthropy, we call them signature events, that the chapter is healthier, that the guys enjoy the experience more, and it's simply because they're looking outside of themselves. So totally, it is absolutely in line with ATO and our mission, and certainly something that Glazebrook would have promoted most definitely. Sean, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today. If someone wants to get a hold of you or learn more about Clean the World, how can they do that?
You can go to cleantheworld.org. You can go to ctwevents.org. You can go to thewashfoundation.org. And we are on all social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram. I think we've got some TikTok going now as well. So you can find us anywhere you're looking, you'll find us.
Great. Well, Sean, thank you again very much. And thanks for taking the risk and going through the hard times to start Clean the World.
Thank you, Wynn. Appreciate your time.